We've all had those moments. Laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the life we want to live. It's clear in our heads, the place we want to wake up in, the people we want around us, the way we carry ourselves when we walk into a room. We see the dream so vividly, it almost feels like we've already lived it. But then morning comes, and the gap between that vision and your reality feels heavier than ever. You open your phone, you see someone else living a version of it. You read another thread about how to manifest faster. You feel inspired for 5 minutes, and then the fog rolls in. What if the problem isn't your dream, but the questions you're not asking? Most people try to manifest by repeating what they want. But wanting isn't becoming. If you want to bring your vision into reality, there are only 3 questions you need to start asking. Daily, honestly, and without fluff. The first question is this: who would I be if I already lived that life? Not what would you do, but how would you carry yourself? What choices would you make at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday? How would you speak when you enter a conversation? How would you treat your body, your time, your energy? This question removes the fantasy filter. It shifts you out of future wishing and into current embodiment. Because manifestation doesn't happen when you hope harder. It happens when you begin to act like the person you're becoming before any external reward shows up. That doesn't mean fake it. It means show up for it. If the future version of you meditates, speaks clearly, and sets boundaries, what's one tiny way you can do that today, even for 30 seconds? The second question is harder. What am I currently doing that keeps me from that version of myself? It's uncomfortable. It makes you look in the mirror, not just at your intentions, but your habits. It forces you to notice the micro moves that are quietly telling your brain, we're still staying small. Are you delaying every meaningful task by waiting to feel ready? Are you surrounding yourself with people who normalize self-doubt? Are you filling every free moment with noise so you don't have to feel the tension of unmet potential? Most people avoid this question because it exposes the gap. But the gap is where your power lives. When you name the friction, you regain the ability to shift it. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to interrupt one pattern a day. That's how momentum begins. Through friction, not fantasy. The third question is the one most people never ask. What proof will I give myself today? Not what result you'll achieve, not what someone else will validate. What proof will you generate for yourself that you're in motion? This could be tiny. One sentence written, one honest conversation, one workout done even when you didn't feel like it, one breath taken when you almost quit. Every time you give yourself proof, you teach your brain, I'm not just visualizing anymore, I'm becoming. And the more internal proof you collect, the less external validation you need. That's the moment you shift from dreaming to embodying, from hoping to holding, from being someone who talks about alignment to someone who walks in it. These questions don't require a full moon or a vision board. They require honesty, attention, and courage. Courage to move when no one's watching. Courage to choose one aligned action over one perfect plan. Courage to believe that becoming is built, not granted. You don't need another technique. You need 3 questions, and the daily willingness to answer them with action. That's how the dream gets built, not in your mind, but in your minutes. You can feel it, can't you? That tension between who you are and who you know you could be. That version of you you've glimpsed in quiet moments when no one's asking you to play small, when you're not busy pretending that almost is good enough. And yet when the time comes to move, to change the habit, to take the step, to speak your truth, you freeze. You don't mean to. You want to move. You want to show up. But something inside you whispers, not today, let's wait until it feels easier. That voice isn't your enemy. It's your old programming trying to protect you from failure, discomfort, exposure. But you don't grow by waiting for silence in your mind. You grow by moving through the noise with gentleness and grit. And this is where the power of the second question begins to do its real work. What am I currently doing that keeps me from that version of myself? This isn't about judgment. It's about pattern recognition. Because every day you live the same habits, you reinforce the same identity. And identity is what determines your actions. Not the script AI wrote, not the plan you downloaded, not the podcast you heard. So pause. Really ask yourself, where are you leaking energy? Maybe it's in that extra 40 minutes scrolling before bed, convincing yourself you're unwinding, when really you're numbing out from the guilt of a day half-lived. Maybe it's in the way you say yes to every request, because the thought of disappointing others is louder than your own needs. Maybe it's in the loop of researching more techniques, journaling another perfect plan, asking AI for another perfect routine, without ever actually walking through the discomfort of real change. There's no shame in these patterns, but there is a cost. And until you name that cost, until you say out loud, this habit is keeping me from who I know I can be, you'll keep investing in the illusion of becoming without ever living it. You're not lazy, you're not broken. You're just trapped in a loop of clarity without embodiment. And the way out is surprisingly simple. You ask the third question, what proof will I give myself today? Not proof for the world, not something to post, something just for you. Quiet, real, embodied. Because here's the truth. Transformation doesn't need to be impressive. It needs to be integrated. And proof doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. One breath taken when you want to quit is proof. One honest boundary spoken even though your voice shakes is proof. One new thought chosen instead of the old spiral is proof. And when you track it, when you write it down, say it aloud, feel it in your body, you train your nervous system to trust. We are no longer stuck. We are moving. This is how you build self-leadership. Not by controlling the future, but by honoring your alignment now. In the moment where fear lives, where resistance spikes, where discomfort demands an old response. But you don't answer with the old you anymore. You breathe, you move, you offer proof. Because every time you do, you teach your future self that the dream is not some far-off wish. It's a life that is already forming under your feet, in your choices. You don't need to manifest harder. You need to move with intention, one aligned step at a time. Let's slow it all down. Because what we're really talking about here isn't just goals. It isn't even about success. It's about how you live when no one's looking. It's about the moments between the big ones. The way you show up when your alarm goes off and your old self says, stay safe. The way you look at your phone when resistance hits and choose to pause instead of escape. The way you feel your shoulders tighten before a difficult choice and still make the one that brings you closer to who you want to be. This is where it all lives. Not in strategy, but in micro-alignment. The truth is, we're not waiting on clarity. We're waiting on integrity, the feeling of our actions matching the person we claim we're becoming. And that's the hard part, because this journey doesn't reward plans, it rewards patterns. So here's the next level of those three questions. When you ask, who would I be if I already lived that life? Don't just imagine the highlight reel, imagine the boring parts. The stretch of quiet hours when no one affirms you. The friction of keeping a promise to yourself when no one will know if you break it. Imagine the version of you who no longer performs progress, but lives it. How do they hold space for doubt? How do they treat resistance? What do they do when they feel like they're not enough? Now go be them for 5 minutes today. 5 minutes is enough, because it tells your nervous system, this is safe, this is real, this is who we are now. And when you ask, what am I currently doing that keeps me from that? Don't just think in actions, think in identity reinforcers. Because every time you avoid the thing that calls you into discomfort, you reinforce, I'm someone who backs away from expansion. And every time you interrupt that, even slightly, you send a new signal, I can be trusted to rise. Your job isn't to become perfect, it's to become trustworthy to yourself. That's what the proof is for. You're not proving you're worthy. You already are. You're proving that your actions are now in relationship with your highest truth. That's not manifesting a future. That's inhabiting a reality, one tiny shift at a time. So don't overthink the proof. If it's raining and you still go for your walk, proof. If you feel tired but still sit down and write one line, proof. If you open your mouth to apologize for being too much and instead say what you meant, proof. This is how your life shifts, not with force, but with fidelity to the self you've been denying. The future isn't built in plans, it's built in practice. So take a breath, feel your heartbeat, and remember, your next moment is your next answer. Most people think transformation is about changing your circumstances, But the truth is, it's about changing your responses. Because your environment won't always align with your vision. People won't always support your shift. Emotions won't always make sense. But how you respond, that's where your power lives. And those three questions, they're not just reflections, they're a compass. They bring you back when everything else pulls you out of center. When the old self whispers, stay invisible. When the doubt says you've failed before, why try again? When the outer world reflects your old habits back at you like a mirror, that's when you pause. And ask, who would I be right now if I already lived that life? That version of you. They may still feel afraid, still feel the weight of uncertainty, but they move anyway. They speak anyway. They rest with intention, not avoidance. This isn't about acting like someone you're not. It's about remembering who you actually are, underneath the old survival patterns, the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the self-doubt. And when you ask, what am I doing that's keeping me away from that version? You bring the unconscious into the light. You stop giving your power to autopilot. You stop letting your phone, your past, your fear decide the shape of your day. You start reclaiming your time. Maybe you notice the moment you're about to numb out with content. Instead of spiraling, you stand up, stretch, breathe, change locations, break the loop. That's enough. You just gave yourself proof. Because the third question, what proof will I give myself today, isn't about doing something impressive. It's about living something true. And truth doesn't need applause, it just needs practice. You see, manifestation without accountability becomes fantasy. But manifestation with embodiment, that's liberation. Because now you're not waiting on a sign, you are the sign. You're not waiting to feel ready. You're proving to your nervous system that readiness is a myth and willingness is enough. Every moment you answer those questions honestly, you shift timelines. Not in the mystical sense, but in the practical, grounded, cellular sense. You change what your body expects. You build new neural loops. You strengthen the muscle of self-trust. And that's what changes your life. Not another AI plan. Not another motivational scroll. Not another script that sounds right but dies in your inbox. Just this. One honest check-in. One moment of aligned behavior. One small proof. Repeated until it becomes your default. That's the work, and it's quieter than most people imagine. But it's deeper, truer, and it sticks. Because when you build a relationship with your future self, not through vision, but through daily attention, you realize something powerful. You were never far away from the life you imagined. You were just one decision removed from it, again and again. There comes a point in this journey where the vision fades, not because it's lost, but because it starts to live inside you. You stop obsessing over results. You stop needing to prove anything to the world, and instead you begin showing up for the quiet rhythm of becoming. That rhythm? It starts and ends with the same three questions. Not once a year, not just in crisis, but every day, like brushing your teeth, like showing love, like grounding yourself before the noise starts. That's how these questions work. They don't demand grand answers. They invite small alignment. And that small alignment, repeated over time, builds something bigger than any overnight breakthrough ever could. Because here's the secret no one tells you about transformation. It's not loud. It's subtle. It's you waking up, feeling resistance, and still sitting in your ritual space. It's you pausing after an argument and choosing not to spiral. It's you catching yourself before slipping into old self-talk and whispering something kinder. When you ask, who would I be if I already lived that life? You stop fantasizing and start embodying. You're no longer rehearsing for someday. You're walking it in small ways today. And when you ask, what am I doing that's keeping me from that version? You stop pretending the block is out there. You look inward, and from that honesty, you shift. Not because you're broken, but because you're brave enough to change the pattern. And when you ask, what proof will I give myself today? You stop needing external permission. You start trusting the quiet internal evidence. One breath, one choice, one proof. These are not tasks. They are invitations into presence. They are a return to self-leadership, a return to the now. Because real manifestation doesn't come from what you script. It comes from what you repeat, what you prioritize, what you reinforce. And that reinforcement begins every time you answer the questions, not with your words, but with your steps. And those steps, they don't need to be perfect. They just need to be yours. Because no one else can walk this path for you. No prompt, no coach, no algorithm. Just you. So take a moment now, breathe, feel where you are, then ask yourself softly, who would I be if I already lived the life I dream about? What habits, patterns, or thoughts are quietly pulling me out of alignment? And what is one proof, just one, I can give myself today that I'm on the path? Then go give it. Even if it's tiny, even if it's shaky, even if no one else sees it, because you'll know. And when you know, you move differently. Let's step back for a moment, not to disconnect, but to zoom out and witness what you've really built. Because if you follow these questions, day by day, breath by breath, something subtle has shifted. It might not look dramatic, it might not feel like a social media breakthrough, but inside, you've begun to live with a different kind of attention. The kind of attention that turns intentions into identity. The kind of attention that stops needing everything to feel perfect before taking the next step. And it all came from returning to 3 simple questions. Not just to think, but to move. Who would I be if I already lived that life? What am I doing that keeps me away from that version? What proof will I give myself today? You've repeated them, felt the discomfort of asking honestly. Maybe you even hesitated to answer. That's okay, that's real. But the fact that you're still here means something bigger than clarity happened. You chose awareness over autopilot. And from here, everything changes. You've learned that becoming isn't about suddenly feeling ready. It's about choosing alignment before you feel worthy of it. You've learned that proof isn't external. It's in the micro decisions, skipping the scroll, showing up even tired, saying no when silence was easier. These are the sacred, quiet wins no one sees, but they matter. They build your rhythm. They redefine your self-image. That's what creates lasting momentum. Because momentum isn't hype. It isn't productivity. It's self-trust, earned, reinforced, and protected by presence. You've felt that shift, from hoping to holding, from imagining to embodying, from chasing to returning, again and again. And maybe the world hasn't noticed yet. Maybe the dream hasn't fully arrived yet. But you have. That's the difference. You're not someone waiting anymore. You're someone practicing, becoming, living. And when that becomes your default posture, quiet, firm, self-led, everything around you begins to respond differently. You'll notice it in your breath, your tone, the way you enter a room. Not louder, but more anchored. Because you're not trying to convince yourself you're enough. You're moving like someone who already knows it. That's the energy people feel. That's the frequency that shifts relationships, opportunities, and yes, results. But you're not doing it for the results anymore. You're doing it because it's who you are. And that's the real manifestation. Identity in motion, intention in the body, self-trust in your decisions. No magic words, no AI script, just the willingness to live the truth you've been whispering to yourself for years. So keep asking the questions. Let them live in your journal, on your mirror, in your breath. And every time you return to them, remember this. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not missing the secret. You're already becoming. And the next time doubt whispers that you're still not there, you'll smile. Because you'll know. I moved anyway. That's my proof. Follow Think Fresh daily for more grounded mindset shifts like this. Because you don't need more hype. You need clarity, movement, and quiet self-leadership that sticks. We're building something real here, and you're already in motion.